Football is an extremely heated sport. Players sometimes get physical, assault their opponents, and even officials. They allow their ugly, dark sides to come out angrily. Despite this, rarely will it get to a point of taking another player or person's life, but there are isolated, shocking cases that will astound you. Today's video will most likely leave a bitter taste in the mouth, but we have to talk about. Here are 5 footballers who have been charged with arguably the worst crime of all: murder. Marcos Alonso. The former Chelsea and Real Madrid star has had a relatively successful career, but has a stain that has been hanging over his head for years. On what was a normal night in Spain's capital, Madrid, in 2011, a 20-year-old Alonso, who was then playing for Bolton Wanderers, crashed his grandfather's BMW after a night out partying with friends. The car had 4 occupants, and unfortunately, one of the passengers, a 22-year-old lady who was not breathing when she was pulled out of the wreckage, was pronounced dead 30 minutes after arriving at the hospital. The other 3 passengers in the car, including Alonso's friend and former Real Madrid teammate Jamie Navarro, suffered injuries that were thought not to be life-threatening. Navarro suffered a broken collarbone. Miguel, the defender's brother, broke 3 ribs, while another lady suffered head injuries. Alonso escaped unhurt. Investigations later revealed he was driving at 122.8 kilometers per hour in a 50 kilometers per hour zone and had a blood alcohol level of 0.93 milligrams per liter, almost 3 times the permissible alcohol level in Spain. Despite the incident, he was still allowed to play professional football while waiting for his sentence, which wouldn't come until 2016, 5 years later. He was initially charged with driving under the influences, resulting in death and injury from reckless driving. The charges, according to Spanish laws, would have seen him spend 4 years in prison. The charges were later reduced to 21 months in prison before being dropped altogether for a fine and driving ban, which he had already served by the time of 2016. He reportedly paid €500,000 to the victim's family, which helped his punishment be reduced. From Spain to Brazil, number 2, Bruno Fernandes. Wait, what? Bruno Fernandes? Yes, Bruno Fernandes, but it's not the Fernandes you were thinking of. Sorry to disappoint you. The player in question here is Brazilian goalkeeper Bruno Fernandes de Souza. The shot-stopper quickly made a name for himself in his native Brazil, but just as his career began to take off, his life changed forever. In a gruesome case that seems like a scene straight from a Hollywood movie, Bruno was in 2010 charged with the assault, torture, and murder of his extramarital girlfriend and mother of his youngest child, Eliza Samudio. Even though he had first denied the accusations, it was later revealed that he organized the kidnapping of Samudio from a Rio de Janeiro hotel, who was later strangled to death and her body cut up and some parts fed to dogs. Is that even real? The remaining parts were reportedly buried under concrete. After investigations, the former Atletico Mineiro star was found guilty and sentenced to 22 years in jail by a jury comprising of 5 women and 2 men. In a turn of events, though, he was released in 2019 and went on to even open a cafe, and he was at no point repentant for the crime. In fact, he was bullish following his release, saying, "Dude, what happened happened. I made a mistake, a serious one, but mistakes happen in life. I'm not a bad guy. People tried to bury my dream because of one mistake, but I asked God for forgiveness, so I'm carrying on with my career, dude. I'm starting over," as quoted by The Guardian. The audacity! As if that wasn't shocking enough, he even signed a 2-year contract with Boa Esporte, a second division club, and played 5 games before demonstrations led to his rearrest. Crazy, bizarre, unbelievable. Number 3 on our list is yet another case of overspeeding, this time involving Dutchman Patrick Kluivert. The Dutch legend made a name for himself playing for Ajax and Barcelona. He is arguably the best player to ever feature for Ajax, playing a key role as they won a host of titles, including the UEFA Champions League in 1995, despite being just a teenager. Despite his success as a player and later manager, Kluivert, just like many on this list, will forever have a stain in his past, one that will never be erased. The attacker's career with the Dutch club came to a screeching halt after he crashed his friend's BMW M3 into Dutch theatrical director Martin Putnam's car, killing the 56-year-old and injuring a woman. After investigations, it was later revealed the forward had been traveling at 104 kilometers per hour in a 50 kilometers per hour residential zone, and he was driving in a non-insured car. He later revealed he was put through hell by the fans in the months following the incident. "One minute I was the idol of the public, the hero of Dutch football, and the next minute they slaughtered me because of what I had done." He didn't stay at the club for long following the incident. He left Ajax and joined AC Milan before he went on to have a successful career with Barcelona and Newcastle. Number 4. Diego Buonanotte. One of Argentina's most promising talents, Buonanotte was destined for greatness. His star was starting to shine at Argentine giants River Plate. He even featured alongside Lionel Messi in the Argentine squad, which won the gold medal at the 2008 Olympics. But his career took a hit following an accident in 2009, in which he was the sole survivor. Buonanotte, who was driving his father's Peugeot 307, lost control of the car and slammed it into a tree. The youngster was reportedly on his way back from a night out when this unfortunate incident occurred. All the other 3 occupants in the car lost their lives, but miraculously, Diego recovered and was back on the pitch after 5 months. There were calls to have him charged for murder, but the charges never came. He went on to have a relatively successful career, playing for the likes of Malaga, Granada, and AEK Athens. He has, however, admitted to rival fans chanting "murderer" whenever he played, and that incident will most definitely remain in the memories of many. Number 5. Alexander Villaplan. Well, this one is wild. Wondering why you've never heard of the name? Probably because you were not born yet. And to be honest, we're glad his life has been overlooked and cast aside. The Algerian-born Frenchman remains football's ultimate villain, almost 80 years on. He was a brilliant footballer, a tough-tackling, high-energy, combative midfielder. He had an eye for a good pass and tremendous heading ability. It was inevitable that he was destined for bigger things. He captained France in their first-ever World Cup match in 1930. His stock rose and he became a household name, and with it came fame and riches. His newfound lifestyle saw him interact with the high and mighty. He allowed his hype to get into his head and realized the financial rewards that would come with it. With time, his game dropped, and his career was on the rocks. He played his last competitive game of football in 1935 at the age of 30. He faded into oblivion, and with this, his life took a much darker turn. He became the head of the North African Brigade, a criminal organization that collaborated with the German Nazis in anti-resistance activities. His greed had taken him to the bottom. He was well known for his excessive cruelty and savagery and reportedly ordered the execution of 53 individuals in Musadan, including women and children. He was finally apprehended in 1944 and received a death sentence. Villaplan was eventually shot by firing squad on December 26, 1944, having been condemned as one of the most despicable traitors in his country's history. How about that for a life career?